After several weeks of working non-stop to finish the work for my upcoming exhibition in Birmingham, I am finally taking a little time to rest and to see the sights. And honestly, I need it. So this week's studio video is a little different. Instead of rushing to finish a piece or meet a deadline, I'm taking some time to answer questions that viewers have sent to me. One question in particular is about how I decide to frame a piece. So today I'm going to take a little time to walk through some of the decisions I make when framing my work, and I'll answer some of the other questions that I got. Hi there. Welcome to another episode of my weekly videos. I'm Clara Nartey. I'm an artist who uses textiles and wire to make art. In my weekly videos, I share my art practice with you. Come on into my studio. So, my first question is from Celeste by email, and she says, "Hello, Clara. I have a question for your next video. In the early part of this video, you show yourself collecting your pieces from various locations. Some of the pieces look like they were mounted on frames and attached in a way that you could still see the back of the work. Could you discuss how you decide what to frame versus what to hang from a sleeve, and how you frame your pieces? Thank you. I so appreciate your videos, Celeste." As I started to sell my work and I realized that collectors have their own preferences on how they like the work to be presented in their homes or in their offices or wherever it is that they are displaying the work, I minimized the pieces that I frame. So you see that I have a mixture of framed work and unframed work. The second criteria is size. How big is a piece? If it's a small piece, I think it will benefit from being framed. So I frame work all the way from little pieces, 12 by 12, all the way to about 30 by 40. Beyond 30 by 40, I will not frame it because one, the collector may not want the presentation that I am creating, the frame that I have. Two, it becomes heavy and difficult to transport from one exhibition to the other. And so because of those considerations, I do not frame it. If you would think back to the pieces that I sent to England for the show, you would realize that most of them were unframed. So the larger pieces were all unframed. I rolled them all up into one big roll and then put them into a box and had the shippers pick them up. If they were all framed, that would have been a much bigger box to be able to hold that number of pieces that I shipped to England. I did have a second box of framed works, but those works were 18 by 24, so they were not that big. So like I said, the smaller pieces, I will not hesitate stretching them on wooden frames or framing them. So let me show you the different ways that I frame the work. This is a piece that I have framed, and as you can see, it is stretched on a wooden frame. And when you look behind it, that's the stitching on the back, and you can see the wood, and these are the nails that I used to frame it. So this is typically how I would stretch the work on the wooden frame. Here is another piece that I have stretched on a wooden frame, and that's the back. So you see the stitching in the back, and it has a wire where you can hang it. So this is typically how I would frame small pieces. This one here, it's also about 12 and maybe 10 inches. So these are smaller pieces. And as I said, the biggest piece that I would frame is a 40 by 30. I had to take the camera back a little bit so you can see it. So as you can see, this is a bigger piece. This is 40 inches by 30 inches. And this is also stretched on wooden frames. This one, however, in addition to being stretched on a wooden frame, I have put it into a floating frame. So this is called a floating frame. So there's a wooden frame just like this. It's been stretched on a wooden frame just like these ones have. But in addition to being stretched on the wooden frame, another frame has been put around it. I am not using glass or any other thing in front of it. So you can see the front and you can see the back. Some people prefer it this way because they want to see the texture of the thread, because my work is a lot of thread work and people want to see the thread. So they don't want the glass in front of it. However, there are different considerations for why you would want to have the glass in front of it, for conservation purposes and for when you are displaying the work in a high traffic area. So in institutions, when I have sold my work to institutions, they do put glass over the work because of the high traffic and because of conservation, because they want to protect the work and make sure that the threads and the fabric and all the textiles involved are preserved for a very long time. So those are the different ways in which I present the work. I hope I answered your question, Celeste. My next question is from YouTube, and it's from Andrea. Andrea asks, I am interested to know how you develop your background fabric. The colors are wonderful. Andrea. So Andrea, I am borrowing from the West African tradition where fabrics and textiles are used for storytelling. So instead of buying commercially available fabrics, which already have motifs on them, so I am designing the fabrics using software to create repeat patterns of motifs that help me tell the story that I want to tell. So in West Africa, fabrics have stories behind them. They usually have some proverbs, some meaning, some political statement. There's something related to the motifs in the fabric, and they are used to tell stories. And so I am inspired by that way of using fabrics to tell stories. And so when I am making my work, I am thinking about what I want to say about that figure that I am creating, and to make that story complete, I want the materials to also speak, not just the figures or the colors. To where I use Adobe Illustrator to design my fabrics, and I will put different motifs in the background fabric so that it helps tell the story. And I can explain that using an example here. So for this piece, which I created not too long ago, if you would remember, let me move the camera a little bit so you can see. Okay, so if you look at this piece that I created, this piece has a bird here in the earring. It also has 3 birds, which I created here, there, and at the bottom. So the piece is talking about how the birds create a space of safety for their family, for their friends, for their for their people, and how we can create these circles of friendship, which is the title, circles of desire, which is the title of the piece. So the birds here are meaningful to the story that I'm telling with this piece. And so without the birds in here, the story is not complete. So I design the fabric and then I create the portraits. I hope that answers your question, Andrea. The next question that I want to answer is one that came in different forms. So I'm going to summarize it into one question. And the question that people were asking is basically, do you teach? Are you planning to teach? When will you start teaching? So it was all about teaching. And I have to be honest, I have said that I will teach at various times across this journey, and I am yet to start teaching. And part of the reason why I haven't been able to teach is that I am not sure what people want to learn from me. So I can teach so many things. I could teach about starting an art practice and how to manage your art practice, which is a whole topic of professional development that you don't often get, that I think will be very valuable to a lot of people, and people have asked me questions about that. I could also teach about general art and design, and I could teach specifically about using thread to make art. And so there are so many things that I could teach about, and I could teach about African fabrics and textiles and the storytelling features, the history and the politics involved with textiles over the years and how it's traveled from one place to the other. I could teach all that. So there are so many things that I could possibly teach, and I am not very sure which of them I should be teaching. That is the reason that I still have not started to teach, because I am still not sure what I should be teaching. If you tell me what you will be interested in learning, that would help me come up with a program to teach. So if you're planning on going to the Festival of Quilts, I have some discount codes that can help you get your tickets for a little bit less than you would pay for the full price. So if you're going to go, let me know. Contact me by email or a DM, and I'll give you the discount codes. Also, I will be doing a gallery tour of my gallery on Thursday, July 30th from 4 p.m. to 4:45. So it's a 45-minute gallery tour where I will be sharing the inspiration behind the work and telling you the stories behind the work and answering your questions. So if you're going to be at the Festival of Quilts, do add a gallery tour to your ticket. I haven't yet finished my packing. I need to be packing my stuff to get ready to go to Birmingham, but I'll get it all done. Thank you for joining me today in my studio, and I hope to see you next time. And until then, create something beautiful and share it with the world. I'll see you next week.